Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Talk More Talk, a solo Beatles video cast where normally we talk just about all things solo, but we are making a very special exception tonight because I think maybe you guys have heard that a special movie has been released. After many, many years, we've all talked about it. When is it going to come out? Well, it finally did. Let It Be. The original 1970 film is finally out. And that's what we are going to talk about tonight. And we have a very special guest that's going to be joining us to discuss this special event. He will join us in a second. I'll reveal who the special guest is. But first, let me introduce myself and my good friends that I have the fortune to share this screen with every other Monday. First of all, I'll introduce myself. I'm Kit O'Toole. I am the author of Songs We Were Singing, Guided Tours to the Beatles' Lesser Known Tracks, Michael Jackson FAQ, All That's Left to Know About the King of Pop. And also the co-editor of Fandom and the Beatles, the act you've known for all these years, and the co-host of the podcast Toppermost the Poppermost. Joining me here tonight, as usual, he is the co-host of the popular Paul McCartney-centric both videocast and podcast Two Legs. He is Mr. Tom Hunyadi. Tom, you excited about tonight?
Not only am I excited tonight, but I've just been excited the last couple months, knowing that we were going to get this release has been very exciting. And we'll talk more about it. I can't wait to talk more about it with you guys. And I hope you're all doing well, and I hope my colleagues are doing well. And let's get going.
Absolutely. I've been really stoked about this too. Um, Also with us tonight, as usual, you know him from his very popular YouTube channel, Mean Mr. Mayo, where he talks about all things collecting, all things Beatles, does a number of live streams where he has people come and talk about, ask questions, talk about their passions in collecting as well. We, of course, know him as Joe Mayo. Joe, how are you doing tonight?
Hello, Kit. Hello, co-hosts. I'm doing great, and I am not going to let it be.
All right. Exactly. You are ready to go as well. And of course, you know him from his many, many shows, his longtime syndicated radio show, Every Little Thing, where he plays just that. Also from his very popular podcast, Things We Said Today, and also from his equally popular YouTube channel, Ken Michaels Radio, where he has just about everybody you can imagine, authors, podcasters, YouTubers, musicians. It goes on and on. Sometimes we've been on there as well. You never know who's going to show up. You know him, you love him, Ken Michaels. Hi, Ken.
Hi, Kit, Joe, Tom. I thought the album we were covering was Let It Rot.
No, that's next time. We're going to get to that next. Another listen. That's another listen.
That's enough.
Yep, there you go. And now,
Get up and go. Get up and go back
go.
home.
Right. And now I'm very pleased to bring on our special guest. This is kind of a family reunion tonight. He was one of the original hosts of this show. You know him from his many, many books that if I listed them all, we would probably have to just end the show for tonight because
Yeah,
it would take an hour.
we only got so much time here, kid.
Exactly. So we are just going to mention the latest book that we all know, Living the Beatles Legend, The Untold Story of Mal Evans. He also has his own podcast, Everything Fab Four, which is in the midst of its sixth season. And he is just one of the best Beatles experts out there. You know him, you love him as well. Say hello to Mr. Dr. Ken Womack. Hello, Ken. Come on board.
Yeah.
There he is.
I
Hello,
appreciate
Ken. Welcome back home. How are you?
it. You guys are really taking good care of the place. It's wonderful.
I got to tell you, talking with you and Gary last year was late last year was fantastic, and seeing you and Julie at the fest in February was really amazing, and giving attention to a man who deserves the attention, and you just doing a wonderful job presenting that information. Ken, my hat's off to you, my friend.
Oh, thank you, Tom. That's very kind.
Right on. Yeah, it was a long time his story was told, and you did it
Yeah.
extremely well. That's for
Yeah.
sure. All right. Well, we are going to dive into this long-awaited remastering reissue of this film. But first, Ken Michaels, watch out which Ken I'm talking to tonight. Ken, this Ken, what news have you got for us?
Well, you remember the name of the band, the Kens, right? Wasn't that the name of the band when we first started, the Kens?
Yeah, that's right.
Ken Womack, the
The
Kens.
Kens. That's right. That's right.
I did a contest once on my website. It was the World of Ken's contest. It was all books whose authors were named Ken.
That's right. Oh yeah, that's right. That was
Yeah,
great.
that's
You
right.
could do two non-Barbies.
Yep.
Mm,
There you go.
We had Ken Womack, Ken Mansfield, and
right.
McNabb. Ken
McNabb. Yes.
Yeah.
McNabb, there you go.
Yeah.
All right. As you all know, Let It Be, the movie, premiered on Disney Plus on May the 8th. We're going to be talking about that extensively in just a few moments. There was a new video that was made for the song Let It Be, which premiered last Friday. And well, I mean, I could tell you what my thoughts are about it. I thought it was brilliantly done. My God, the pictures are so absolutely clear, right in your face. But there's a lot of shots that we've never seen before from different angles of the Beatles during that performance of Let It Be, and it was very well done. Some real highlights for me anyway is the camera zeroing in on Ringo's hands with the drumstick as he's playing, George smiling a lot and waving at the camera, seeing Billy Preston at the keyboard
Yeah,
and there, and
right.
real close-up, a lot of close-up shots, but also just to see George enjoying himself during the song was really cool. Anyone want to add to that?
Well, I agree. I just
Well,
loved seeing the different angles and of Paul. There were some, alternate angles of Paul from the side, and I agree. Just brilliantly done. And of course, the restoration. I mean, the film quality was pristine. I loved it.
Okay.
that's exactly right. All the different angles was really cool to get a look at that. Absolutely.
Yeah. There's also one moment with George Martin on there, and I'm not sure what he's
Mhm.
playing, some kind of percussive instrument.
Right.
Well, that was really nice to see. And John Lennon playing the bass notes too. You can actually see, his fingers playing everything. It's real close up. So very well done, the video for Let It Be. Paul McCartney's Eyes of the Storm exhibit just opened at the Brooklyn Museum in New York. It is running through August the 18th, featuring many of the photos from Paul's book released last summer, pictures of the Beatles taken by Paul from late 1963 and early 64 when they first visited America and witnessed the craziness of Beatlemania. And a touching yet sad story related to this exhibit. There is film footage from 1964 that many Beatles fans have seen that was included in the film 8 Days a Week of a young girl named Adrian, who is from Brooklyn. And in this footage, she says, "I love the Beatles and I'll always love them. Even when I'm 105 and an old grandmother, I'll love them. And Paul McCartney, if you are listening, Adrian from Brooklyn loves you with all her heart." Well, Paul responded by making a video on Instagram. He said, "Hey, Adrian, it's Paul. Listen, I saw your video. I'm in Brooklyn now. I'm in New York. I finally got here. We got an exhibition, a photo exhibition. Come along and see it." And the caption he added, "And Adrian from Brooklyn, if you are listening, Paul McCartney from Liverpool loves you too." Well, sadly, it turns out that Adrian died in 1992 from lymphoma at the age of just 41.
Oh
But
my
a real
God.
nice gesture on the part of Paul at the time. The John Lennon estate has partnered with the company Luminate to create 9 new meditation mixes of John's song Mind Games. The song's mixes are slowed down and extended, with 4 focusing on the brain waves beta, delta, gamma, and theta. These work with the app's frequencies to drive listeners deeper into consciousness. The 9 mixes are paired with the phone's flashlight to create a trippy, psychedelic experience. The project launched on May 1st in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month, and Sean Ono Lennon said in a statement, "I'm very happy to be working with Luminate on this release for Mental Health Awareness Month. I think our Mind Games project is fun, meaningful, and potentially mind-expanding. I have been using the Laminate app for my own personal meditation since it launched and have had many profound experiences. My father was famously into meditation. I remember trying the flicker machine he kept in the bedroom, which is what first introduced me to the idea of stroboscopic brainwave induction. I thought it made sense to combine the music of Mind Games with the science of Luminate. I really hope people enjoy the results as much as I have." And Yoko Ono added, "John was trying to convey the message that we all play mind games. But if we can play mind games, why not make a positive future with it? To be a positive mind game. Mind Games is such an incredibly strong song. At the time, people didn't quite get the message because this was before its time. Now people would understand it. I don't think in those days people knew they were playing mind games anyway." I saw something online that there may be a major announcement in a couple of days.
Wednesday,
Yeah.
Wednesday,
So it's
Wednesday.
got to be for the box set. Maybe we'll know all the contents.
Mhm.
Fingers crossed we
Yeah.
ship everything Wednesday. In other Lennon news, coming out June 28th is the DVD Revival 69, the concert that rocked the world, directed and produced by Ron Chapman. This is the live Peace in Toronto concert shot by D.A. Pennebaker, which includes performances from the Plastic Ono Band, The Doors, Chuck Berry, Bo Diddley, Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, Alice Cooper, and Gene Vincent. Described as a feature-length documentary that explores the nearly unbelievable story of the 1969 Toronto Rock and Roll Revival through the iconic verite lens of D.A. Pennebaker. Once-in-a-lifetime moments are captured between the festival's cross-generational bill, like Jim Morrison admiring Chuck Berry's performance from side stage, or Alice Cooper backing 50s icon Gene Vincent before launching into his own raucous solo show. But perhaps most remarkable is the debut of the Plastic Ono Band and how 2 Canadian kids in their early 20s came to organize John Lennon's first major performance outside the Beatles. Again, that's coming out June the 28th. Other Lennon news, I remember reporting this early last year. Variety magazine is saying that Kino Lorber has acquired the North American rights for a new documentary on the week that John and Yoko co-hosted the Mike Douglas Show in early 1972. Titled Daytime Revolution, both Yoko and Sean were creative consultants for the documentary, though they don't appear in it. Using archival footage from each of the 70-minute shows, as well as 6 interviews from surviving guests, including Ralph Nader, they tell the behind-the-scenes stories of these shows. Daytime Revolution will first open theatrically later this year, followed by a home video and also educational and a digital release on all major platforms. One more piece of John Lennon.
Ken, real quick, I gotta tell you, as a Blu-ray snob,
Yeah.
Kino Lorber is fantastic. They do excellent work, restoration, special features, all of that stuff. I'm really excited that Kino Lorber, got the rights to distribute this documentary. So I think it's going to be great.
Fantastic. I'd still like to see all 5 shows re-released.
Yeah, right.
On video cassette a long time ago, and there's never
Right.
been a DVD of any kind or
Yeah.
blue. One more bit of John Lennon news. His long-lost Hootenanny 12-string acoustic guitar, lost for over 50 years, has just been discovered in the attic. It's always in the attic, isn't it? I don't know why. The attic of a rural family home outside of London. It is the same guitar that John played in the movie Help for You've Got to Hide Your Love Away. It was also used on several Beatles songs, It's Only Love, I've Just Seen a Face, Girl, and Norwegian Wood. It is about to be sold by Julian's Auctions and is set to go under the hammer as part of Julian's Music Icon series on May 29th and 30th. Executive Director Darren Julian said that John gifted the guitar to Gordon Waller of Peter and Gordon, who later gave it to its current owners. For the past 5 decades, it has not been played.
Wow.
All right.
Wow.
Just 2 more news items real quick. In a new interview in USA Today, Ringo Starr said that his new country album won't be out until at least October. He also said some very complimentary words about guitarist Steve Lukather. He said, "I'll never get rid of Luke. He has a lifelong ticket. He's my last best friend. You need time to make best friends. He's an incredibly good musician and an incredible human being." Real high praise there for Steve Lukather. And finally, James.
Well, he only
Yeah.
played on every album in the '80s. So I mean, that's
Well, he's one of the greatest guitarists out there. There's no doubt about it. He adds so much to the All-Star Band lineup and all the songs that he co-wrote on Ringo's albums, and on the EPs.
Yeah.
James McCartney's new song, Primrose Hill, which he co-wrote with Sean Lennon, has a new video made for it, which you can catch on YouTube. Whole bunch of young people, romantic couples in Primrose Hill, I would assume, which is the name of the park in London where the Beatles considered doing that performance, which ended up on the rooftop. All right. That's all the Beatle news I have for you this time.
All right. Thank you, Ken. All the news that's fit to print. All right. And I love Steve Lukather because he wrote the foreword for my Michael Jackson book. So love you, Steve. Mwah, mwah. All right. Had to throw that in. I love him too. Okay, so let's get to the main topic of tonight, which is, of course, Let It Be. I never thought I'd be saying that it's finally out. After all the years, as I mentioned, that we've talked about when will it ever be released, and it finally has on Disney Plus. Now, before we get to our discussion, I thought I would ask the Kens right here that because they went to the special screening of it before it was finally dropped on Disney Plus. And so I just thought briefly, if you guys want to tell us a little bit about what happened at that screening, if there were any, special guests, what was it like to see it on the big screen? Since, we didn't have the opportunity to see it. So why don't we start with our special guest, Ken Womack? What was it like to be there?
It was wonderful. It was a true privilege, and it was great seeing Ken, of course, as always. And it was a magnificent experience, right? To see it on the big screen, without question. Very crisp. There was a wonderful talk back before the show. So I guess it was a talk forward, talk front, with Michael Lindsey-Hogg and Jonathan Clyde of Apple, and just fascinating conversation about the film. It was just it was a real treat. I think Ken would agree, and I can't believe we're saying it too, Kit, that it's finally here. We've talked about it for so long. I'm really happy for Michael Lindsey-Hogg, who worked so hard on that film and had such an interesting avant-garde kind of vision for that time. Kudos to him to be able to experience this time.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I mean, let's be honest, to be alive to see it, I mean, to be able to experience it, let's be honest, and to be able to see it in its glory and to hear people talk about it. Absolutely. Ken M, what about you? What was the experience like for you?
Well, it's a privilege to be invited to any of these things, and to see Let It Be on the big screen is such a treat. And like we said, the clarity is just absolutely amazing picture-wise. But if anything, and I'll probably repeat this on the show, I was so impressed with the audio. It was just so clear. And especially when the Rooftop concert comes on, it's like they really beefed up that audio. It's like you felt like you were right there with them and you could hear what a great live band they were. And that was a really good Q&A, as Ken was saying before. And one of the things that was said by Jonathan Clyde, which I found interesting, I'm going to have to listen more carefully as I watch Let It Be repeatedly now. He said that because of the technology that was used in separating the instrumentation, that you could actually pick up some dialogue in the movie that you
Yeah.
didn't.
Yes.
So I'm listening for that in particular, and there's a lot of stuff I haven't heard that goes by so quickly. So I have to really pay more attention to every little word that's said there because there are some things that I never heard before in the film. And also in the audience, Sean Lennon was there. Elvis Costello was there, Paul Schaefer. None of them said anything in front of the crowd. They were just there to
Yeah.
observe. I didn't even see Sean leave. He was just gone by the time
Wow.
the movie was over. But I had a blast and I was really impressed by everything. And it's such a great feeling to see this in a movie theater with speakers where the audio is going to sound better than ever. And that's the way to see it, really. So
Yeah.
they should
Tom?
put this in theaters again.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, as you know, I want to ask you guys. I mean, was anything said about the restoration? Because as we know, it was restored back in the early 2000s for a supposed release while the Get Back Naked was released. So was there any word about how much restoration was needed after it was already restored to begin with?
Oh, you
Okay.
mean Let It Be Naked? Yeah.
Now,
Mhm.
Peter
Yeah,
Jackson,
I'm
not to
sorry,
interrupt, but Peter
let it
Jackson,
be. Yeah,
Peter Jackson worked on it though, right?
Yeah, he did.
yeah,
Yeah, so I'm thinking, I would, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, but I thought of that.
yeah.
I think it's new.
I'm trying to remember something was said about one of them that wanted it to make more digital looking
Mm,
the other. Um, Probably I would think Get Back,
I would
but
agree. It's certainly,
yeah,
yeah, Get Back has the digital sheen where Let It Be,
right,
like it was shot on film stock.
yeah.
Mhm.
right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
And didn't Michael Lindsey-Hogg kind of say he wanted it to be a little grittier as opposed to the other? That's what I'd heard that he told Peter Jackson that he didn't, keep it a little grittier than Get Back.
Well, that would make sense.
That's what
Yeah.
I'd heard.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go backwards here. Okay, so we of course had all seen the original. Maybe not when it first came out, obviously, but so when had you, if you guys could, remember back, what was your first experience with Get Back, with Let It Be? When do you remember, what were your impressions that you remembered of the film? So Joe, let's start with you. What do you remember when you first saw it?
Well, I think the first time I saw it was with the now pretty crappy even then magnetic video. The
Mhm.
first first physical media I owned of any kind of movie on any format. I'll keep it forever just for that.
Mhm.
But it was such a thrill. This is another story entirely back then, just to have something. And I had a 13-inch TV in my bedroom, and it was like I can put this in, and I can actually watch Let It Be as much as I want. So I got to memorize it. I mean, I know every frame, every word. So I was kind of able to tell differences when I saw the new one. But you heard so much at the time. This is bickering and everything, and it's them not getting along. And John was very vocal about it. George was vocal about it. So yeah, it wasn't that pleasant an experience at the time, I thought. But I mean, it had moments that I loved, like the rooftop, like Ringo and George working together on Octopus's Garden, which is still one of my favorite moments of the entire movie. And of course, the songs that we now know were recorded the last day Two of Us and Let It Be and Long and Winding Road. Those were highlights. But overall, yeah, I was drinking the Kool-Aid. I kind of felt like, yeah, this is kind of like a downer in a way. I know what they mean, and of course the quality wasn't that great on this particular copy that I saw. And then after John died, I saw it in the movie theater. They played it at a local movie theater, and I was able to see it on the big screen. It was the first time seeing it on the big screen on Long Island. Well, all I'll say is that, which I'll get to, I'm sure, later at some point, I have a totally different feeling about the movie now.
Yeah.
Totally different feeling.
Yeah.
But that was the way I felt. That I could see what they were saying. It was kind of, we weren't used to seeing our mop tops having a little dispute, and it is a little dispute now.
Yep, we will get to that, but yeah.
George and Paul, it's like, what? But at the time, it was like, oh my God, dude. Oh,
Yep.
wow.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because the first time I saw, I mean, it was available, because I didn't get into the Beatles until '85. And so I saw it was at a local mom and pop video store. They had a copy of Let It Be. And so, I saw it VHS. And yeah, it was a dark print, and dark is how I remember Let It Be in every sense of the word. I mean, the dark print. And because I think I had read all the, the books about the Beatles at that point, that was thing, oh, was this depressing film, showing their breakup. And I think that colored my opinion going into the film. And so other than the Rooftop concert, that was great. But, I thought it was tense, and that really, I think, colored my view of the film going into it. But Tom, what was your first experience with it?
1988. Pop took me to a mom and pop video store, rented Let It Be and the Complete Beatles, and I was in absolute heaven. And not knowing, well, unlike you, I mean, I didn't read anything about Let It Be. I mean, I didn't know what was going on. They're performing songs. They're on a rooftop. I was just, I didn't care. I just loved what I was seeing. I loved the beginning stages of a lot of songs. To this day, I think January '69 is one of the most fascinating periods of the Beatles' career. But I didn't care because I was just seeing the Beatles play. I don't remember it being the VHS being this dark, dreary thing as the seventh bootleg of a seventh bootleg that I have right here. I mean, it's just this is an abomination. I mean, I don't know how we survived watching Let It Be as long as we have with these bootlegs, and then now seeing it as we got to see it on Let It Be, which we'll talk about later. But again, I was just in awe. The next time we went to that mom and pop video store before Blockbuster ruined everything, it wasn't there. So maybe somebody had it, or no, somebody didn't return it. So yeah, it was yeah. But I just remember just being in awe and loving every minute of it. And knowing what we know now, it's completely different. It's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, back in 1988, that and the Complete Beatles was just a night I'll never forget.
Yep, that's quite a double feature. Absolutely.
One thing I wanted to mention: this thing in 1981 used cost me $60. $60.
$60?
Yeah, that would be a lot now.
Honestly, VHSs back in the 80s, if you wanted to buy a VHS, $99.99.
Oh, sure.
Was the ongoing price for a VHS if you wanted to buy it.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, not cheap at all. Absolutely. And then, as you said, once Blockbuster came along, yeah, Let It Be was gone. I mean, absolutely. Dr. Ken, what about you? What was your first experience with Let It Be?
My parents had rented a projector and they showed it in the house in the late '70s, and it was that's how I saw Magical Mystery Tour the first time too. And I I remember it was exactly as Mayo said, right? I mean, we were preloaded to believe a certain way about the film. We know so much more about the story now
Right.
than we did. We knew more about the story 10 years after the story than we did at the time. So um, I remember having my thoughts colored by, the sort of the talk that you read about and the criticism in advance. It would not be until many, many years later when with our home DVD bootleg copy, when my youngest son Ryan, who's now 33, watched it and said, "This is my favorite Beatles film." And I was like, "What are you talking about? Hard Day's Not Yet." And he said, "No, I'm serious." He said, "This is the one." And I saw it through his eyes. This is about, I guess, 15 years ago now. And I thought, wow, I get what you're talking about. And I mean, it's the greatest comeback in the history of rock and roll, right? In a lot of ways, at least for the Beatles. It's a magnificent story.
Mhm. It is. It really is, and that's interesting. That different perspective. Absolutely. All right, Ken. How about you? What about your experience with it?
Well, I hope I'm accurate in saying this because if I had known back then that I would be doing radio shows and podcast shows, I'd be keeping notes of everything. But
Mhm.
I think the first time I saw Let It Be was in a movie theater late at night. Joe, you might know. It was in Uniondale.
I
Uh,
didn't see it in Uniondale. I saw it in Valley Stream on Long Island. I remember.
okay. Uh,
Mhm.
and going into it, I had the same thoughts of, oh, this is when the Beatles are breaking up, and that did affect my judgment of the film. And so I thought of it as a depressing film at the time. Everything was magnified because this is the Beatles that we're talking about. And if you're used to seeing them in A Hard Day's Night and Help, that's not this band. It's presented in a completely different way. And when you're used to the most perfect recordings, to me, in my mind, that were recorded in the studio, and you've got this band very loosely doing rehearsals and everything, and I didn't really enjoy it as much. It's only in later years that I've come to appreciate it more, but I didn't watch it that much growing up from my teenage years into my 20s and 30s because it kind of upset me then because I kept that same old feeling of this is a depressing film. And it was only a few years ago, probably when Get Back was released, that I watched it for the first time in many years and thought completely different of it. So, but yeah, and I did get a VHS copy myself, and I also had the feeling that this was a dark film, and for other reasons that we'll get into. But yeah, I saw it in a movie theater once, I'm pretty sure. I
I
hope.
just wanted to mention the Beetle Fest as well. I forgot. I mean, they
Oh,
showed it
right.
at Beetle Fest, the old name.
Uh,
It used to be good to see it there, and you'd have people reacting. They'd applaud the old man who walks on top of the roof to get a good look. They applaud him. They boo the guy in the street that's says it's an imposition to disrupt all the business in this area. And so I love audience reactions like that.
Yep. And when George would plug his amp back in
Oh
on
yeah,
the
they applaud
rooftop, and
that
they were
too.
like, "Yeah,"
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was great.
yeah.
Exactly. So, okay, so I think our reactions were, in some ways, we enjoyed it, but in some ways they were tainted by the print of the film,
Well,
the
let me
background. I mean, it was interesting. Yeah.
let me just say, like, unlike Ken, saying that he, going into it, right, knowing this is like you're told, like, this is a movie about a band breaking up,
Yeah, and I was
whatever.
like that too.
When I saw this, that didn't come into the picture at all for
Mhm.
right.
me. This was
Yeah.
just a band doing its thing,
So you went into it more
rehearsing, and then
blind. Yeah.
yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, if you go into this movie blind, you have no idea what's going on to begin with.
Yeah.
I think, but it's
Yeah.
you have a completely different feel about this film if you go into a blind rather than knowing the history. Obviously, yes, 1970 it comes out, the Beatles are already broken up, so
Yeah, it's like
the
3 weeks
the
later.
story,
Yeah.
yeah, the story is
Mm.
okay. This is about a band breaking up when in reality it's not really that
Hmm.
when it's being filmed.
Mhm.
I remember saying when Get Back came out, if I didn't know what was going to transpire the rest of the year with John saying he wanted to quit the band in October, if I had observed everything that I saw in Get Back in January of '69, I would not be thinking this is a band that's going to break up.
Mhm.
Right.
They
Yep.
seem like, just a normal band.
Yep.
And they have a few
Yeah.
arguments. That's it.
Mhm.
You know?
Which happens in
And these
any
aren't
band.
Right.
Yeah, right.
and these aren't really arguments, they're conversations, right?
Yeah, exactly. All right, so now we fast forward all the years that we said, when is it going to come out? When is it going to come out? And some people along the way saying, I don't know if I want it to come out. I remember it being really depressing, and I don't know if I want to see it again. It was so sad. And okay, then Get Back comes out a couple of years ago. Now we have it. So we sat down the other night, watched it. So let's start with initial impressions of the print, how it's been cleaned up. So we started, let's begin with picture quality and, sound compared to what you had experienced before. What were your, initial thoughts? Were you knocked out? Were you disappointed? What did you, and I know Ken and Ken are going to react a little differently because they got to see it on the big screen first, but um, what were your initial reactions to it? So Ken Michaels, why don't we start with you this time?
Um, Knocked out on both
Mhm.
accounts, picture quality, audio quality. Even watching it on a laptop on
Mhm.
Disney Plus, it's just so crisp and clear, the picture
Mhm.
quality. And the audio is just great. You
Mhm.
know, they out of 5 stars, they get 10 stars
Mhm.
for this. I mean, you couldn't have done a better job. I was really pleased overall with everything.
Right. Tom?
Audio, I'll get into that a little later if we talk about highlights of the film, but the audio is just drop dead, and I'm in awe. Picture wise, I think there was a difference between the Get Back and the Let It Be. I think when we're talking about restoration, true film restoration, I think this is it. I think the Get Back has a little bit more digital restoration, which I'm not complaining about. It still looks great, but I think you can tell a little bit of a difference between a true film restoration, and a digital restoration. But that being said, I think it's look at we watched this, right, and this right here is why we think that, or we thought that, the movie was dreary, depressing, and we were watching a band break up. It's because of this. I mean, you see the new restoration, which I think we should have got back when, Get Back or Let It Be Naked came out. It's a completely different story, and it's fantastic.
Yep.
It changes everything. I mean, including, if you watch Get Back, I think that little interview before. I don't know if did you guys get to see that little
Oh,
exchange
yeah.
of words?
Oh yes, we're gonna get to
During
that.
yeah,
Yep.
and they talked about that. It's I don't necessarily think it's a cohesive little interview. It looks like it was very edited.
Mhm.
Um, what you see, but it's the restoration is just fantastic. I'm just so glad. Listen, it's like 99.9 restored to its original concept. Obviously, we can talk about what's different about it. And I mean, Joe and I, who we believe in film preservation, there's a few differences between the beginning and the end of the film. But that being said, it's 99.9% perfect.
Mhm. Wow. Okay. All right. Joe?
Well, the first thing I noticed was that it was 4 by 3 correctly, like a
Yeah,
square, 1.33. Um,
1.33. Yeah.
yeah, 16 millimeter. It was done on. When it was shown in theaters, they had to kind of, I guess, crop it to be rectangular, which is not really correct, but that's when you want to be anal about it. This is the right way it should be. The first thing I noticed, and of course, we've said the visual quality was astounding, such an improvement compared to what I'd been used to for decades. But the audio impressed me even more than the visual quality of it. I heard things in there that I don't know if I just quickly mention a few now that I hadn't heard before. Well, first of all, I counted. I've seen it twice, the new one, and I thought I only noticed one F bomb, but I there were three that I noticed.
Yeah.
And when George gets shocked, he lets out an F bomb and a couple of other things, and I'm like, oh, gee, I didn't notice that. Now that was something you couldn't get. Well, they could have done it maybe in the original presentation, but they opted, I guess, not to include the F word originally, and little things like before two of us, when they do the we call it a video now, the performance of two of us, you hear like a Lindsey-Hogg, I guess, say something to the effect of "start the cameras" or something like that, which is was not in the original Let It Be. And finally, um after Dig a Pony, I think, the famous line when John says, hands are getting too cold to play the chords,
Yeah.
is brought
Yeah.
way up. I've
Yeah.
never heard that at all in Let It Be, ever.
Yep.
The film, I mean,
I
not,
think,
not the
yeah,
record.
yeah.
They
I
decided to
do
put
remember.
that in.
Yeah, I do remember hearing that through the Get Back docuseries.
Now I'll tell you
Um,
though, like, this is
yeah.
something nobody's mentioned, and I get very anal about these things. Okay, like, it's etched in my head, the audio for Let It Be. There's a scene when you see the crowds, and there's some girls like scurrying across the street at one point, and originally I'm used to hearing one of them goes like "woohoo" or something like that. That's gone. Like, where's the woohoo? I remember, you could see it if you watch the old clip. I'm like, okay, no big. You got to take the bad with the good, I guess. We got so much greatness here. I can live without a woohoo.
Yep.
Not
Well,
woohoo.
as we learned during the Get Back docuseries, I mean, the audio is really where I think this whole thing is a winner. With to be able to separate, everything, and then obviously that little luncheon between Paul and John, how he was able to get that audio and present it to us in that in the docuseries. I think that this is what really is the highlight. Probably is the audio for sure.
Oh yeah, I
Absolutely.
agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Ken, Dr. Ken, what about you? What struck you when the movie was, first impression when it was starting?
Well, as everyone has said, and I don't want to belabor the point too much. I mean, the audio really is outstanding.
Mhm.
I mean, Ken used all of his stars and some extra stars to rate it earlier. It's such a rich sonic experience, and yeah, we've just had one great moment after another in the last decade or so of being able to experience, the Beatles better than most folks did in their heyday, with possibly the exception of being in the studio, right? I mean, it's just we've really been treated to some magnificence over the last several years, and it's just beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, at first I was a little underwhelmed by, I thought it was going to be a lot brighter. I mean, I thought, but it was plenty. I mean, they definitely had done a lot with brightening up the filming. I thought, wow, this certainly beats those bootlegs. We had seen it's a lot better.
And one last thing, I mean, say what you will about Disney Plus, them allowing these F bombs to
Yes,
occur.
that's
True.
big.
You got to give them credit. You got to give them credit for allowing that to
Good
occur.
point. And there was no disclaimer this time.
No, none.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. And yeah, I mean, but then I thought, well, and then when I did hear that Michael Lindsey-Hogg wanted the graininess left in the film, I thought, okay, then I guess that's unfair to compare that to Get Back, because this is a film. Get Back was, I mean, not that wasn't a film, but I mean, it was different. It was kind of a docuseries. It was meant to be, Peter Jackson wanted that to really, the color to really pop, wanted it to almost look like it could have been filmed today. This was different. This was
if
more
I
of
can
a
mention,
timepiece.
while I think of it, Kit, I see that Andy is appearing here in the comments, but because he had said something about, he thought that the scene with George and Paul when they had a little moment there bickering or whatever, uh, debating whatever.
Yeah.
That it looked dark. That part still looks dark, he said, but I think that's just the way it was filmed. The lighting
Yeah.
wasn't particularly bright in that scene.
Yeah, yeah. And so,
Mm.
and I guess if he had overdone it with the correcting of the color, maybe that would have looked too fake. Maybe that's they wanted to, Peter Jackson
Right.
wanted to preserve the integrity of the film as much as possible. But the audio, as you all said, wow. I mean, it's funny that you brought up the F-bombs, Joe, because that is one of the things I noticed, that scene where George was, got shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember him dropping as many F-bombs as he
Yeah, right. And I just
he
noticed it with
did.
"I Me Mine." That he was saying, "I don't care if you don't want it on your show." I think there's an F
Yeah.
bomb in there too,
Yeah. I'm
which I
like,
didn't, and I forget what the third one was.
yeah, and I mean it's funny because there were certain moments like that where I'm like, wow, Peter Jackson really, just did a great job of tweaking the audio so you could really hear, conversations more. And I mean, we know that from Get Back, of course, but yeah, that's I think where it really shines
Well, a
is
lot of those things, like when Paul's talking about writing "Too Bad for Sorrows," and he's talking
Mhm.
about he used to go back to sag off school. That was always kind of muttery. If
yes.
such a word exists, muttering. I could never really hear it. I had to listen hard for that. Now you can hear it, what he's saying.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Mm.
Let's go back because I actually meant to cover this a little earlier. So let's go back to the very beginning, where before the film starts, there's that brief conversation with Peter Jackson and Michael Lindsey-Hogg. Um, and it's very, it's interesting how they're discussing, and apparently it was filmed in 2023. It looks like,
Yeah.
and
April
yeah.
2023.
Yeah, so interesting that, was filmed that
Which
long
which
ago.
which I'm curious because when was the last time you had Ken? When was the last time you had Peter Jackson on Things We Said Today? I think it was after that, and I think you guys talked about a possible Let It Be release, and I think he was like, "Oh, I don't know anything, whatever."
Yeah, he
Well,
probably couldn't say
there may
anything.
not have
Yeah.
been an official word at that time, and
Right.
to be
Well,
careful.
no, and
Yeah.
well, yeah, no, I totally understand. It's like you got to keep that
Right.
stuff confidential, So
Yeah, so interesting timing. But anyway, so we have that beginning conversation. What, if anything, do you think that adds to the film? So Dr. Ken, let's start with you. What do you think that added anything to the film, or do you think it,
You know,
how do you think it puts in perspective?
Ken may see this differently, but watching it in the theater right after we'd heard a conversation with Lindsey-Hogg, it felt kind of redundant, to have this kind of armchair discussion about the film. But I found it to be useful. It gives us some good framing, some good thoughts on how the film was framed and their perspectives of it. So I think, historically, it's going to be quite useful to have that comment. It's sort of like a director's cut, right?
Mm,
The
Yeah.
filmmaker's cut.
Mm.
Yep. Yeah. I found it interesting that they were sort of positioning as this was sort of the grandfather of Get Back. I think that's what they said at one point. Yeah. So I don't know. Ken Michaels, did you find it that way?
Uh,
Watching the two introductions at your screening?
I think it's great for the general public.
Yeah.
You know, there's a couple of comments that were said. I didn't find it particularly revelatory,
Mhm.
but one thing that Michael Lindsay-Hogg said that he also said in our Q&A was that he felt that the film, Let It Be, he felt never got a fair shake because of the
Right.
time approval. And I just like what Peter Jackson said about how we're hearing songs from the Abbey Road album for the first time in this film.
yeah,
So that's a unique, observation about Let It Be. It's not just the songs that they're doing and putting out then or working on then, but also what was gonna, come out on Abbey Road.
Mhm. Absolutely. Um, Joe, did you feel that beginning part, framed your viewing of the film in any way, or did
Um,
you? did you feel it enhanced it in any way?
Well, the first time I saw it, I wasn't expecting it when the film dropped the first day, and actually I was kind of like, let's get to I wanted to get to the movie, you know. It seemed longer than it was. The second time I watched it, which was just before the show, I wanted to watch it fresh again. I really paid closer attention and really was glad it was there. But I think what I like the best is the idea that Michael Lindsey-Hogg is going to get some vindication, some satisfaction.
Hmm.
I like that he's here, he's still with us to see this. And I really, later on, I'm sure we'll address more of that. What do you feel now about this? That I really think this is going to come across as a winner now, more than a loser, than it used to be. So I think it's great that he's able to see this, is what I'm thinking when I
Yeah,
watch it.
absolutely, absolutely. Tom, what about you?
Absolutely. The point is Michael Lindsey-Hogg getting his day in the sun, but I thought it was poorly edited. I didn't think it was a very cohesive little if you want to call it a back and forth discussion. I thought there was some things where Peter Jackson talked about and then Michael Lindsey-Hogg said something completely different. I don't know if it was done well, but I was expecting something like this because we got something like that at the beginning of the Get Back docuseries.
Right.
So you want to kind of have something of context. You want Michael Lindsey-Hogg to have his say. This is about as best as you're going to get to a film commentary from a DVD or a Blu-ray out there. And hopefully, when we do get a Blu-ray, so I'm going to say when we do, because I do believe we're going to get a physical media of this release. Hopefully, there'll be some kind of commentary for Michael Lindsey-Hogg because he should be able to have his say about this film.
Yeah, I think it could have been a little longer. I mean, I think probably they figured, okay, for this, this format, we probably can't have it too long. I mean, people want to get to the film. Maybe it's also, this is for a more general audience. This isn't for the hardcore Beatlemaniacs. So maybe
Right.
keep it short. That's all I could figure
Mm.
because I kind of wanted to hear a little more. And
Mm.
I thought, yeah, they probably cut a lot out of that, and a little more background about the film would have been better. I think so. I kind of agree with you, Tom, that the editing was kind of, but yeah, I think you're right. That maybe if I hope we get a physical release, it'd be nice to have a longer edition of that
Let me say, not a lot of people know this because I know in the past Disney has sucked about releasing movies on physical media, but they have signed a deal with Sony, and Sony will be distributing here on out. Sony will be distributing Disney films here on out with this movie called The First Omen. So starting this year, so Sony will be distributing Disney films starting this year. So
Okay.
hopefully that means
That's
more. So hopefully that means more films in the Disney vault, and films as they come out will be released. Thanks to Sony.
you got to
Okay.
hope for extras though, because they haven't been big on extras.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, right.
Yeah. So, all right, that's a good sign. Let's hope so. All right, we've touched on this a little bit before, but let's get to the argument. Okay. Everybody talks about the argument, and I think we all had it kind of blown up in our minds for a number of years in the old versions of all this argument. So, in this new version, and of course, knowing we saw the whole thing and Get Back for the first time. So now we see the argument in this remastered version. How do you think it played in now that we've seen this new version and of course knowing what we know about it now from Get Back? How do you think it looks in this remastered version of Get Back? Let's see, Tom. Let's start with you this time.
It doesn't look anything. I mean,
Mhm.
we saw the clip in the Beatles anthology, right? I mean, it wasn't anything then. I don't recall thinking it was any big deal when I saw it back in '88.
Mhm.
You my mom and dad got into bigger arguments than what Paul and George did with the listen. I think Paul, listen, obviously, George did his save for isn't it a pity, right, where he did a verse and guitar lick and that and was George right in that, or was Paul right in that? Who knows? Who's to say? But I don't think it, and we saw a little more of these little things throughout Get Back. I think, hearing John, say "don't bitch about it" while during that first run of the two of us, where his mic wasn't on or whatever like that. There's a lot of this what we saw in this movie and the docuseries where Paul maybe didn't look as good as maybe he hoped, and I gotta be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if it's been Paul that hasn't want this been released for the longest time, and not the other camps.
I've heard it was the Harrison camp.
I heard that too.
Olivia's,
but
That was
That-
the
Yep, but I have a
that was a rumor. That was a rumor.
because
But
Paul did go on record once. I remember hearing him say something like, you would think that I wouldn't, because I don't particularly come off good in that. He said
Right.
once. I remember hearing him say, but now I think on the contrary, he comes off great now in Get Back, especially.
in certain scenes, yes, absolutely. But in this little spat or argument or whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
it's not a big deal.
Yeah. Ken W, we talked a little bit about the argument the other week when we were chatting, and you had some thoughts about the whole thing about this the whole incident. What's your take?
Well, this and Get Back both demonstrate, how trivial it really was. So much has been made about it, and again, all of our thoughts, in many ways, have been pre-colored that this was one of the key breakup moments, and it just isn't true. And anybody who's ever been in a band, I've been in a band, I know some of you have too. This is what happens, right? I mean, this is creative differences are real. Sometimes they're big. I mean, all of this is mild compared to the Eagles or the Who. I mean, my God. I mean, this is nothing. This is just little polite contretemps, right? I mean, it's
Yes.
just nothing. I mean, Daltrey would have his fists out ready to go, proudly. But so I do think this really helps put the lie, both of these fine productions in their own ways, very different ways, but they both demonstrate how less forceful that entire exchange really was. And I do tire, and this is happening, and maybe I'm getting curmudgeonly, but there are a number of sort of Beatles mythologies that just tire me out. And one of them is this. Somehow, this is linked to George quitting, 2 days later. Because he just can't get that out of his mind. And of course, there's so much more going on with George in January 1969 that he's not giving that a second thought, right? What did John Lennon say around this time, Mayo? Something akin to, well, we've been having the same argument since Rubber Soul.
Something.
They're just not on film,
right?
Right. So again, so much of this has been overblown through the lens of a breakup, Paul announcing it, and then weeks later this film arrives, and of course it's been used as proof positive that, oh, no wonder they broke up. Did you see? And so I find that again, Let It Be and Get Back prior to it really help us reframe a lot of this thinking. But again, they have problems in January 1969. It's not erasing that, but what it's helping us to see is, again, what perhaps Tom saw back when he saw it for the first time, and with his youthful perspective, or my son Ryan, right? Which is, Ryan saw it as a band that gets it all together in the last 2 days, does a concert on a roof, and then the next day records 6 classic songs. I mean, who does that? Well, the answer is the best do that, the greatest of all time. Only the greats can pull that off, and that's the cool thing about the story.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, our friend Mark Zuckhoff, who I should mention, sent us a terrific comparison of what was cut out, left in, comparing the original Let It Be with the remastered Let It Be. So thank you very much, Mark, for doing that. We really appreciate it. He said the difference about the argument is that Get Back has George's follow-up line, but I don't think you know what you want.
Yeah, that's a good
Let It
shot.
Be doesn't, which is an interesting thing. But yeah, I mean, that's how it strikes me watching this. And again, nice cleaned up audio so you can really hear it. That, yeah, I mean,
But yeah, there's to add to that, there's also that little clip of George saying, "Well, if we could play back the tapes, you would hear that you would want this either or something."
Yeah, was he
Yeah.
talking? See, but what is he talking?
to that
I mean,
effect.
what is he referring? Is he talking about when that "Don't Let Me Down" bit when he was doing For
I
the
think,
First Time in
Paul's
My
making
Life?
Oh,
all these,
yeah.
Paul's making all these suggestions or whatever, and then George is saying, well, look, if you heard the playback, you would probably disregard that
Yeah,
comment,
Yeah.
as well. And
But in any case, I mean, watching this, you just think, how many times have bands had conversations like
right.
this? Really? George would
Well,
leave
not the
over
Beatles. No,
this?
not our Beatles. Well, that's what I
Yeah.
wanted to say about it, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
The thing is that like I said earlier, I mean, we were not used to seeing our Beatles
Right.
be like that, and of
Yeah,
course,
it just wasn't filmed,
right, yeah, but of course I'm sure they had their rows, right?
Sure.
And like Ken Womack said, this definitely this is the reasons why they broke up because of stuff like this. Wow, but I think back in the day, it must have been a little bit of a shock, and especially right after the breakup, right?
Mhm.
But I've also thought George comes off a lot better in Get Back with the whole scenario, and he's even trying to be helpful. And he's even trying to say, let's get this right, something like that. Let's keep trying it, and doing it. He seems more agreeable in there, but the way it's presented in Let It Be is pretty much like him just like losing it at the end and say, I'll play whatever you want me to play, et cetera, or I won't play at all. But then when Paul says, I always feel as if I'm annoying you, George says, you don't annoy me anymore.
Mm.
Which I never picked up on for a long time, and then I realized, like, as if he's been getting sick of this for a while or something. And I was, for what it's worth, with the whole "Hey Jude" bit. I've always been with Paul in that one. It's his song, if he doesn't want
yeah,
echoing the phrases with the guitar or whatever, that's Paul says, I don't want that. He references that too. This one is like, should we play guitar all the way through "Hey Jude"? No, I don't think we should. He's referring back to a past argument.
Yeah, right.
Hmm.
Good question.
Ken, what about you?
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question to all of you about this because I think sometimes the impressions that we have of the Beatles come from not knowing enough about what was going on. And we've been blessed with Get Back and now Let It Be. But because of what transpired in the 70s with Paul suing the other Beatles, and you watch Let It Be, and he really dominates the camera, at least the way that Michael Lindsey-Hogg shot it, you get the feeling that, he was too bossy. Of course, you learn later on that he was driving the band at
Mhm.
the time. And as Ringo said, if it wasn't for Paul, we probably would never have gotten done with all the music that we recorded. But it in the early 70s, you started to get that division amongst Beatle fans that more people sided with John with the Beatle breakup or Paul with the Beatle breakup. And so, did that color your judgment when you're watching this film, seeing Paul making most of the suggestions, being on the camera more than all the other Beatles? Did that affect the way that you viewed this film?
That's a very good question because I really didn't notice that, as much until Get Back. I mean, Get Back really changed, you know, our perspective of this film, right? I mean, it really did because I really saw that this time that it really gives the impression that, Paul was leading the band and that he was directing everything. And when you see Get Back, well, I mean, Paul was certainly a leading force. I mean, he really was. But I mean, everybody else wasn't just like blindly following him. I
Hmm.
mean, that
Although
wasn't
they needed
quite
him,
true.
George
Yeah.
Martin called him the convener, right? He was the
Mhm.
one who would scramble everybody, we got to go back to the studio.
Yeah.
That Ringo remark is really important about about the amount of music they made because he was there lighting a fire.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And everybody needs
Yeah,
one.
again, I
Go
was
ahead,
just
Tom.
thinking, I mean, going into this blind, I mean, you don't get that sense. I mean, you don't get it. This hub has been a whole completely different viewing experience after watching the Get Back docu series. It just has a completely different feel. I mean, look, I mean, how many of us knew when we watched, if you watched it in 1970 when it first came out, how many of you really knew that there was plans of them doing 3 live shows, in 1970?
No,
I
you
mean,
didn't.
No.
I mean, that was announced in 1969. I mean, how many people knew that? You don't. I mean, this is stuff you don't realize until, after the fact. And then that's when the film really starts making sense to you. I mean, but you can enjoy this film whether or not you don't understand what's going on, or when you do understand that. I mean, I think that's the great thing about this film, not necessarily how it's directed or whatnot, but what's going on, what you do eventually see. I think that's the great thing about it, because I think Joe and I had this conversation of
Yeah, I
there's
wanted to bring that
really
up here
no,
too.
yeah, there's really no, when you're watching Let It Be, there's like no narrative. You have no, why are they in the studio?
But you don't need a
Yeah, I
You
wanted
narrative,
to
don't
is
go
know
what I
there.
that.
want to get to after you're done.
But
Yeah, I wanted to
yeah,
get to that.
yeah,
Oh,
but I mean, okay, and then they're in Savile Row. I mean, you don't know that until and then there's Billy Preston. If you don't know who Billy Preston is, you're
yeah,
like, okay, well,
true.
who's this guy now? And why are they on the rooftop at the end? So I mean, again, if you're going into a blind, you really don't, get it and I think that's the great thing about this, the Get Back docuseries, was it really, brings it into the forefront. And unless you heard, which I have the 86, disc, bootleg series of this whole, 69, January 69, but you just, you're not going to know if you go into a blind, but you can still enjoy it.
Well, so I wanted to get into that a little bit, if I may, because the thing is, I've got on my channel, a lot of comments like that. People saying, "Oh, there's no plot or story or whatever you want to call it. Nobody knows what's happening." And I'm saying, originally the idea, right, was just that I didn't care originally that it wasn't linear or anything, that it was just the Beatles performing, rehearsing, doing what they do in the studio, and then they went on the roof. But I didn't have to know, why did they go on the roof, what day of the month was it, or the way Get Back lays it all out. I think Get Back's wonderful, but I think to some fans maybe they've gotten spoiled. Like they expect that Let It Be should be like that, because they don't explain anything. Like, why are they twicking them first, and then what are they doing in this other studio? I never gave it a thought when I first saw it. I didn't
Mhm.
care. I just was watching them perform. I
Well, yeah.
don't think you need that really.
Well, yep, that was going to be my next question about the editing. So, Ken, Dr. Ken was dying to say something. So, Ken, what are
Right,
your
and
thoughts?
so I think that the problem with Get Back / Let It Be is that we will never have a definitive text, right? The definitive edition is, as you know, Dr. Kitten, from graduate school, right? The attempt to create the definitive text of an event, and I don't think we'll get one with this. And what we're really missing, that I think addresses the points by Joe and Tom just now, really involve the original cut, right? That they showed in July 69 to the Beatles and their various friends and relations. We have those lovely photographs that are now available where you can see them all, watching this longer cut and then having a meal, just the way you should do it. But that's an aside. That cut was much longer of the film. I I don't have a real sense of what the differences were, but I wonder if a stronger semblance of a narrative was in that longer version. Perhaps. Again, I have no idea, but it's such a problematic but interesting problematic text. I'm right with Joe Mayo. I watched it the first time, and I thought this, even though I was colored by the breakup film mythologies, I just love seeing them, play these classic songs like Two of Us and Long and Winding Road, etc. That I'd been loving for years. So it was meaningful in that kind of way. But as far as
Right.
narrative, right? It's hard to say, and this is going to sound a little incendiary, and I don't mean for it to be this way, but I think this stems from the fact that, again, it's a problematic text. We don't have a definitive read of it. We know that Michael Lindsey-Hogg went into it wanting to do something very avant-garde with the audio verite, right? Like cinema verite. He wanted to have audio verite, hence the hidden microphones and the running tape recorders, the Nagras, etc. We know that he wanted that kind of feel to it. So the kind of alinear, ahistorical sort of narrative makes sense. So perhaps the longer cut was just more of the same. But I don't know that either film, the docuseries or this film, really. I mean, it has a narrative. I know there's a narrative in Get Back, but it's not an honest one. We know that there are many, many details that are left out. There's the wonderful but bizarre moment where Patty Boyd walks in and gives George that
Right.
kiss, right? People who know the Beatles know why she's doing that, but the docuseries said nothing
Yeah, no
about
context.
what caused that, and the rift that was going on in their marriage. It's just fascinating. The stories that they want to tell and the stories that they actually don't tell. And nothing highlights those more than Get Back and Let It Be.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
good point because
And-
because Peter, oh, go ahead, Ken, I'm sorry.
And maybe these won't be resolved for a long time, right? I mean, I've said this before to you guys. I had a professor in graduate school before I met you, Kit. So
Okay.
who said, the best history will be written 50 years after everybody's dead, and I think that's probably true, especially if we can get that longer cut of Let It Be.
Yep, that's true. And yeah, and
Maybe.
that's
Well, see,
But
my biggest hope is that somebody merges the Get Back docuseries and Let It Be together, and then we've got like 10 hours of.
there you go.
Mm.
More.
And like one thing I thought, like I didn't really have to. It didn't matter to me originally to know, for example, that those three songs. What did you call them? For
The
Tom, like Paul,
McCartney highlight, the
McCartney
McCartney highlight
reel, like
reel.
when he does those three
Yeah.
really good, cool
Yeah.
songs together. Like that
Yeah.
was the last day. They did that after the Rooftop, not before the Rooftop. Like, I didn't have to know that back
Right.
then,
Mhm.
And I think it's a good segue the way it works. They finished Along and Winding Road very somberly, and then we go to the roof. I love the way it is in Let It Be. I see Let It Be more as just a band, just like I said, recording and doing their thing, in the studio working. Where Get Back has a little more of a story, what they're trying to
Yeah.
accomplish, and will they get it done in time? Will they be able to do what they want to do in the limited time they have?
That one of my favorite question about this, and I love talking about this in class every fall. Here they come in with the convener leading the way, right? Paul McCartney's leading the way. They go into the studio. Or they go into Twickenham, right? And we know there's a certain set of conditions there that are then altered when George is coaxed back into the band. But here they are in a hurry to write and rehearse new material. And they just released, in fact, it is #1 in the UK while they're sitting there at Twickenham in that cavernous room, which I was privileged to go into last summer. They've just released an album of 30 new songs. Now, I know they're probably not going to play Wild Honey Pie on stage, but they've got 30 brand new songs, and yet they need new material before they go.
No.
Yeah.
And
But-
what I
but-
take away from that is kind of this obvious, I guess, in a way, and that is, they had no interest in resting on their laurels. They always wanted something new. They wanted
Yep.
the next
Yeah.
thing, not the
Yeah.
thing they just did like 5 weeks earlier.
Before we move on to the Rooftop, I just want to just get Ken Michael's opinion on what did you think of this sort of, Michael Lindsey-Hogg's nonlinear storytelling here, that it's, first, we're at Twickenham, then suddenly we're at Apple. Now suddenly, who's Billy Preston? Now who's this little kid running around? What did you think of that?
Well, like Joe said, you don't really need a narrative to enjoy it. It's just a great film to watch, just to see the Beatles working on songs together, developing songs. And actually, at the same time, I don't understand. There'll always be holes to fill in the Beatles story, no matter what, as Womack has said.
Yeah.
But I think when you watch Get Back, you have a much fuller understanding of what they were going through, especially in just watching the interaction between the four of them. And you learn a lot about their relationships that way. And so I really appreciate Get Back so much more because you got to see them on a day-by-day basis. There isn't even any mention whatsoever in Let It Be about George Harrison quitting the band. You never know that at all.
Yeah.
But you can see a gradual buildup and Get Back where George is kind of frustrated and John and Paul are just in sync with each other and they're rehearsing together and staring at each other, as they're rehearsing when they were the day when it's Elvis Presley's birthday, and George is sitting on the sidelines and he's probably thinking, I'm never going to be part of those two.
That's the way Jackson frames it. I wonder if that's exactly the real deal. He makes a reason for him leaving. There's no real reason, but the way it's shot is as if he's getting looking at them like, what's going on here? Wasn't there something that happened with John and George, supposedly?
Yeah, sure. That's one of the elisions that is left out of the film, right? I mean, there are several such elisions that are not in either film. And for all the narrative we get in Get Back, it's not in Get Back. They're not in Get Back either, right? They mention Yoko ex post facto when they talk about her sitting on an amp. Remember that?
Yeah.
Right.
I imagine that was part of the lunchtime conversation we didn't hear on January 10th. George is going through some stuff. We know this now.
Right.
It's covered in the film.
Now. Yeah.
It's not covered in Get Back, nor is it covered in Let It Be, but he's going through a lot. One of the most interesting moments that's revealed by the Jackson docuseries is that great instance where who was it? Dick James visits.
Oh yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So the royalties, and
and what does Ringo say to George?
I don't remember.
It really cuts to the quick, and George doesn't take the humor in it about, because they're celebrating the Lennon-McCartney dynasty of songwriting,
Right.
and how Dick James is making money hand over fist, and of course we know there's also in this regard, but watching George in that scene is far more penetrating than anything in any conversation he has with any other Beatle.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's been a while since I
yeah.
saw that.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting scene. I wish I could recall the Ringo line. It was
I can't remember.
I just farted.
Yeah, that was a turning point.
I wasn't going to tell you. Yeah, that's what who knew Ringo farted?
Yeah, George had said, I'm out of here. I can't stand this anymore.
I do want to say something. While we're talking about editing, that is very important to me. I want to get this out, okay? With the editing, the Michael Lindsey-Hogg, Let It Be, okay? The late scene where you see Paul trying to talk to John with the back of his head.
Yeah.
And John's just like, it goes in one ear out the other. He doesn't want to hear anything. It's like he's showing like disdain, like who cares about this? That's what I always got, which also at the time made me think, see, this is also like why they were breaking up. I mean, enough of this. Paul, he's talking, trying to encourage him. We got to play live again. We got to do it to an audience. But although it's been a while since I saw Get Back, I was surprised when I saw Get Back in that sequence. Everybody's there. It's not just John and Paul. And John is actually being encouraging at times, and I think Paul maybe had a little nervousness and doubt. Like, let's go up to the roof, John's saying. Let's just do it, or something. Let's take what we got and do it. So I'm like thinking to myself, Mr. Hogg, Lindsey-Hogg, or whatever. I don't know. Are you sure you weren't trying to make a narrative here, like that was edited in such a way, it seems, and Let It Be to make tension and to show that they're not getting along or something. What there was so much more to use. They had George there, George Martin. I think George Martin was in that scene, and I think that a whole bunch of people are sitting there. It's not just John and Paul, and John just not wanting to hear anything.
Yeah,
You're right about that point, Joe.
There's
You
a
know,
lot
the
of
editing,
editing.
the editing makes the narrative, even if it doesn't feel like it has a narrative.
yeah.
Still being shaped in a certain way, right?
Yeah.
Which is why I'm so curious about what was shaped out of the original much longer.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, even there's the to that point as well, Joe, with John in his reactions, even the point with the when Paul's talking about the Maharishi footage, and at the end you see John kind of like smiling. I mean, you don't know if it's like a sarcastic smile.
Yeah,
In
I
a way,
never
it's
felt
just
that,
like,
but you never know. But that's another thing that
you
was
never
gone.
know.
A little thing
Yeah.
I noticed when
Yep.
we sort of put our own personalities under or something like that. And John and Let It Be, the original Let It Be, I remember going or something like that. Hearing him like make like a breath of exclamation, and it's gone. There's no,
Right.
but you don't hear it. You see him, but you don't hear
Right.
it. I don't, I don't know. These little
What?
things
Yep.
I pick up.
So it's absolutely all right. Let's get to the conclusion of the film, which is, of course, the rooftop.
Oh, yeah.
Not counting the credits. So this is obviously a bit different than we see in Get Back. This is, without the split screen, and and we all remember. So what? For you, what did you? And of course we don't have all the context that we have in Get Back. We don't see all the buildup of with Paul, at the last minute, not sure if he wants to do this, and we don't have all this. We just see them go up there and do it. So, your thoughts? What did you like this version? What did you think? What did you think? Were there any changes in this that you found particularly interesting, or what were your thoughts? Ken Michaels, let's start with you. What did you think?
I didn't notice any changes. I love the audio, as I said before. I still wish that we can get a pure concert of just them on top of stuff. I know there's a big debate about this whole thing. I wouldn't mind if the comments on the street were in between the songs, but I want the songs to be complete all the way through.
Yeah.
Right with you, Ken. I could not agree more on that. And it really harms the document of the performance for us not to be able to have what we know exists is that that footage presented in that way.
Yeah, and even though you can stream the whole concert and hear just the audio, visually you can't just get the whole thing intact like that. So, and I don't know why that is. I mean, it keeps it more of a documentary when you have the commentary on the street, but still you could have kept it in between the songs. But the power of that performance is just remarkable. And I mean, I really felt like I was on the roof hearing them. It was, well, at least in the theater, I felt. So yeah, and visually it's stunning. I don't know what more I could add to it. But that's my only complaint about it. I still feel the same way as I did when Get Back came out, and I wish that was a pure performance. Or make bonus footage the people on the street. Keep that separate.
There you go.
There you go. That's a good idea.
Why is it so intrinsic that we keep getting treated to it? I mean, we've memorized it at this point.
Well, as a movie, I think it works as a movie. Having the people's reactions and everything between it, and the laugh about what's that old lady say? I just can't see to make sense. My girlfriend laughed at that. It worked.
I like that old codger who's just like, they're doing good stuff.
Yeah. I mean,
they're cracking.
Yeah. They're all good people. But the thing is, I know when I saw Get Back, I liked what it was good to see a little more like George Martin, I guess, going into the office, and you see the camera, looking at the camera, like where the cameras are, like all these things you never knew, and how many cameras they had everywhere and everything. There was more detail. All right, that was interesting. I wasn't so crazy originally when they had the different panels, the box. The first time when I saw the different squares or uh, different things at once going on, it distracted me a little bit. On subsequent viewings, I appreciated it more, But I think if I'm just going to sit down and say, I want to just watch the Rooftop, I appreciate the Rooftop much more than Let It Be as a whole.
Really?
And Get Back it just flows better to me and Let It Be. But in Get Back, you have like things I noticed. These are the things I noticed. Like the moment in I think it's Dig a Pony also, where George gets down to his knees with
Right.
John, and John like answers
Yeah.
him like that. You don't see George in Get Back. You just see John lift a guitar like that. And you don't know why.
Mhm.
But in the shot in Let It Be, you can see the whole thing. And
Yeah.
having said all this, out of turn probably, I want to agree with the two Kens. I definitely would want to see it like uninterrupted as well, the whole thing. That would be nice. Although I may say the breakdowns and the different versions might not, if they have the whole concert, might not make it flow as well. I think it flows great and Let It Be. If you're gonna have two Get Backs, two I've Got a Feelings, or whatever it was, it would be complete. Wait a minute, didn't I see that at IMAX? I thought I saw the whole Rooftop
Yeah.
concert at IMAX.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
but
think
they
they did
they
that.
also they also it was the same as the docuseries though. It wasn't
Oh, I can't remember.
it was different. But I mean I agree with Ken Michaels. I agree with you guys. I mean it would be great just to see the performance as a performance. However, that being said, I also think it's important to see the reaction of people that have grown up with them over the last 8 years and see how they're still favorably responding to this band. And
Uh-huh.
I think that is just as amazing as the Rooftop. I mean, you see bands come and go during this time, but these guys were just able to stand the test of time and continue to draw admiration from these people that are downstairs during the working hours and leaving. And what does one say? One lady says, "Oh, it's nice to have something light in the office hours," or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And it's another guy goes, "Well, it's nice to get something for free for a change." It's yeah. I want this performance, but to hear these people say what they're saying about this band after 8 9 years of
So,
of
Tom, you want
in the
both.
motherland.
You want both.
What?
You want to have
Yeah,
access to
I
both.
do.
And
I want my cake and eat it too.
I would like all the cake. I agree with you. Let's have all the cake,
Yeah,
though. We can have both pieces.
Mhm.
Let's have
right.
60
But
hours. No, no.
I agree with Ken. Let's get like a special feature though,
Yeah.
where it's just the performance. And my
Yeah.
God, and I'm watching the Rooftop, and I've Got a Feeling comes on, and I'm just like, this is why this is the best band
Yep.
ever.
Yep.
Just them up there, performing, all the songs, but for whatever reason it is, it's I've Got a Feeling that just really hit the hardest for me. And just seeing this band come together, and you see Paul how he's kind of like orchestrating how the guitar is supposed to, do after he does this little ramble there in the middle of the song.
Delay. Yeah.
And then it just all comes together at this moment in time, and you're just like in awe. And this is why the Beatles will always be the greatest thing ever.
No argument there. And the sound sounded fantastic. I agree. I do like the people on the street, but as you said, maybe it would have been better in between songs, or as you said, maybe a special feature, because every time, and I remember the first time I saw this too, when they cut away like during the song and have people talk
Right.
over the music, and I just feel like, shut up.
It's
Let the
people of
music
all
play and
ages,
then you
right?
sing.
It's
Yeah, and I
people
like
of all
that.
ages,
Yeah.
yeah, that are still appreciating this band.
Right. And I mean, and yeah, and some of the reactions were funny. and
Yeah.
some, and then of course the whole thing with the policeman. I mean, it's funny, and of course you get to see Mal, see Mal in action
Mhm.
trying to stay
Yeah,
off.
now we know why Mal was kind of ashen. He had just
Yes.
Right.
Now we
Because that had to
know.
have been a stressful moment for Mel, right? I mean, the George's amp is
he
done.
had
He
been
wants to
written
keep
up, he was
playing.
put in the book.
Mhm.
Yeah. But yet he's dealing with these police at the same time, or these
Ex-
bobbies, if you want to call them that.
Yeah, I
There's
mean,
the
So
consequence.
But
oh,
it's kind of ironic that the police stopped the show at the time when they did, because the Beatles didn't have any other songs.
yeah.
No, they
When they
did.
could
Ken, they
keep
had
going
those
on
30
and-
songs on the White Album.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They could have broke right in. You know what? Sexy Sadie would have been good.
They
Oh.
actually had a lot of songs right there. Do you remember in Get Back when they were going down the list? There were quite a few songs they had.
But they
Yeah.
weren't ready. They
Yeah.
weren't.
I guess they weren't ready. That's true.
And,
So, and I
what-
didn't miss the split screen, by the way.
Right, right,
I didn't
yeah.
I didn't miss that at all. I thought that
No,
was
I agree with Joe. I think this one kind of flow. It kind of flow. It was flowing a little bit better than
Yeah,
than say the Get Back docuseries.
Yeah.
I kind of did enjoy this, even though I love the fact that they showed the whole thing on the
Yeah.
Get Back docuseries.
Yeah, that's right. And I
This was
forgot. I
kinda
forgot
like-
that they did.
yeah.
That's how long. I saw it like
Yeah.
5 times,
Yeah.
but I forgot that.
Right.
You're
Yep.
right.
Right.
Exactly.
One other thing about the Rooftop concert, when you consider the fact that this was their last concert, whether you consider it a concert or not, or Candlestick Park was the last concert, it's a part of history that shouldn't be tampered with.
Mhm.
That's why I think visually and audio-wise, the songs should be presented,
Right.
like I
Mhm.
said, if you want the other stuff, the people on the street, separate in between songs or as a bonus feature, that's fine. But considering its importance in history, we should be able to see the whole thing without,
Mm.
all the songs complete.
I
Because
can't believe there weren't more shots of Billy Preston.
Oh, that just I won't, don't get me started on that, or we'll be here another hour. That is just a travesty. There are barely any shots. of Billy Preston.
Also, anybody should be so lucky as to have somebody that looks at John Lennon the way Yoko Ono looked at John Lennon during the "Don't Let Me Down" performance
At the beginning of the film.
of the film.
I've always
At the
noticed
beginning
that,
of the film.
Tom. I'm glad you felt the same. I always noticed that. What a adoring look.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
All right. So I know we could go on and on about this, but we need to start bringing this to a conclusion. So let's talk about briefly the general impact of the film. So I know you've all seen it. All the comments on social media, and all of you watching out there. I'm sorry we haven't really had a chance to really react to your comments, but we will after this is over. I swear we will. But you've all seen it too. Why bother putting this out? We have Get Back. We have the whole story. Why bother re-releasing this? Why should we even have this? So why should we? Why do you think it's important that this remastered version of Let It Be out there? So, Ken Womack, let's start with you. Why do you think it's important?
well, I mean, I'm going to steal a line from the other Ken, and that is it's historical. I mean, it's been restored appropriately. We have better context now. We understand it more efficiently. The only thing I could say is it's overdue, but I'm certainly thrilled to have it, and it's long overdue in terms of being restored to the Beatles canon. So I'm just absolutely thrilled, and I haven't been spending too much time on social media with this one, but it does seem like it's being well received.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's like I said earlier, we're in a heyday, and I think we'd all be smart to notice while everybody has their nitpicks about what we don't have or should have, etc. We really are experiencing the embarrassment of riches that the Beatles are, and I enjoy it so much. It's just beautiful to see it in this new restored edition.
Absolutely. Joe?
Well, that was the first thing I was going to say. Historical context. It's a piece of history. It's a theatrical 1970 released film. I mean, that's the way it was. It should be presented that way for posterity and for history, if nothing else. But now in the light of Get Back, i- most people, I'm guessing most fans are going to have seen both. You really can appreciate it and not worry so much about any flaws, quotes, or anything. I think it's its own animal now. I might call it Get Back Light. I don't know. It's kind of like everything. I appreciate that it's just a shorter film. What is it, 88 minutes or
Something like that.
so,
80.
80
something,
minutes. Yeah.
something
Yeah,
like
Yeah,
that.
80.
Uh,
Mm.
and it goes flows quickly compared to 8 hours. What is it, 6, 8 hours? I forget how long that thing is. 8 hours.
Yeah, I think it is 8 hours. Yeah.
Get Back. Um, and you get a lot of performance from the Beatles. Uh, we're not here to analyze Get Back per se, but I got to tell you, as a Beatles fanatic, I love every minute of it. I love seeing if we get another 50 hours, fantastic. But objectively speaking, it's bloated. There's a lot. Get Back. Sometimes they don't finish it. They just start a little bit of a song, give you a title. You want them to finish the song, do more of the song, and it's a lot of you could chop a lot out of there, make a really nice 2.5 hour, 3 hour presentation. This is just the Beatles performing for the most part,
Mhm,
and that's the difference.
mhm,
You
absolutely.
know, it might
Oh,
have
but
been
I want the reprise. I didn't complain about the reprise being gone. The
Mhm.
Get Back reprise.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
the end over the credits.
I
Yeah,
don't
Yeah,
like.
that's
exactly.
right.
That's my biggest problem with. Only problem, really,
Mhm,
with it is
mhm.
that. I
That's
mean,
right.
some people say, well, they couldn't do that because Um, uh, Michael Lindsey-Hogg actually probably like edited that way in the camera, froze it when he
Yeah.
did it. I don't know if they worked from an actual original print of Let It Be or they took everything from scratch and
Mhm,
reassembled all the pieces. I
mhm.
don't know, but
Yeah.
I was just going to say it might be interesting to see what Peter Jackson would have done with the
Mhm.
original plan of a 2 hour film or 2.5 hours. How
Yeah.
would that
yeah,
from Let It Be, where he
Mhm,
had to make it much more concise?
yeah.
mhm.
I wonder
Yeah.
Yeah,
what kind
and
of film you'd get out of a night. I don't know how much 2.5, 2 hours and 45 minute version. I wonder what it would be
yeah.
like. Thinking
And
the
I
best.
was just going to say
Yeah.
this, but unfortunately, Tim Allen beat me to the punch. But
Yep.
listen, if Magical Mystery Tour can be released, why can't Let It Be? I
Oh.
mean, both are maligned or
Oh, he said
or
restoring it.
not
Yeah,
the
yeah, if it's
perfect.
worth restoring.
Yeah, but listen, it's the music, right? It's the band.
Yeah.
It's the band we love. It's the music that's the most important thing. Some of the greatest music of all time came out of this month of 1969, and to not to have it is a shame, and to finally have it is a great honor. To have it almost nearly restored as the original, but the integrity is there. We have to have this. Unfortunately, it's been since the mid '80s since it released on Laserdisc or whatever,
Right.
since was official. Copy has been available, but it doesn't matter. It's the Beatles. We should have it no matter what, no matter what they think of it, and what we think of it. It should be available no matter what.
sure.
As
And
as Tim Allen said in the comments, it's the bloody Beatles. Shut up.
Yeah, yeah. Shut up. Yeah.
Best thing Paul ever said.
That's right.
Mhm.
That's
have
right.
issues as I do with some of the narrative or lack thereof at times. It's the footage, it's the music, as Tom just said. Having
Yeah.
that footage makes such a difference to me as a teacher, to be able to have that for us to present in the classroom and to use it as folks will do, I imagine for centuries. So
Hmm.
Right.
Absolutely. Kim
Yeah.
Michaels?
Yeah, I want to say that I think Let It Be is better designed for the mainstream public or new Beatle fans.
Mhm.
It's asking an awful lot for fans to watch 8 hours of the Beatles and get back. It's fine for us, or most of us, but even a lot of people that I know, friends of mine who are Beatle fans, maybe not to the degree that we are, find it difficult to sit through 8 hours of any band.
Agreed. It's a lot.
But when you're studying every minutia of a group and you find it fascinating for people like that, for people like us, we love it. but it's a great introduction to the band towards the end of their career as a group. And there's a lot of reasons to love Let It Be. We didn't even get to mention, and it's the only time you'll ever see the Beatles on camera doing Across the Universe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the only time you'll see them do Maxwell Silver Hammer on camera. So for that and all the songs that are on Let It Be and the stuff that they rehearsed that ended up on Abbey Road, it's really necessary. Anything that the Beatles released during their time, regardless of my feelings about it, like I don't even listen that much to the American albums anymore, but I understand the importance of it historically, so that should always be available.
These days, I always listen to. I don't know why. These days, I always opt for the American albums, but that wasn't always the case with me. I always played the UK.
Yeah. The Beatle cartoons, I would have a real difficult time watching right now. But
Yeah.
important part of Beatle history.
Right.
And I think that should come out,
Yes.
regardless of my
I agree.
Yep.
So Let It Be it's a crime that it was unavailable for so long. And Michael Lindsey-Hogg said in the Q&A that it's because of people at Apple that didn't want it out, or I did hear, again, just a rumor, as they said on the BBC recordings, that George Harrison felt it was too depressing.
Yeah.
Not only that, Ringo has given a couple of interviews recently where he's saying it's
Yes.
not a film.
True. Good point.
Yes.
It's the
Yeah,
last
good point.
time I watched it.
Yeah.
Get
Yeah.
that, but I didn't live it like they did.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I agree. This is important to have. This is a piece of history. And I'm glad, though, that Get Back is out because we have another perspective of it, a full perspective. And so I felt now watching Let It Be, I have a better understanding of what's going on. So I think it's important to have both films out there. So you really have a better understanding of what's going on. Although, as Ken Womack rightly said, is there a complete story that's out there about these sessions? Probably not. I think there's still more out there that we don't know about. So, are we ever going to have a complete story about these sessions? Maybe not, but we have a better understanding than we did before. And I think it's high time that we finally have this and in the pristine mix and picture that we have now. So I for one am very excited. Now I don't have to keep saying when I'm on panels at Beatle Fest and all of you know this, when are we going to get Let It Be? Well, finally.
Yeah.
Now we can move on to other things. So, well, this has been a fascinating discussion. I know there's so many things we had to skip over because there just wasn't time, but I'm sure we'll be discussing other things about the film for years to come. But Ken Womack, want to thank you for coming back home and discussing this film with us. As always, your insights are just fantastic. So thank you so much for being with us tonight.
He's on his way home.
He's on his way home.
Yeah. He's going.
Listen, it's the quick history lesson. Okay, myself, Ken Michaels, and Kit O'Toole. Picture us. We're on a video call, Skype call, and we're talking about who the fourth person of Talk More Talk could be. Kit O'Toole came up with the name Kenneth Womack, and I am so glad that she did. And I'm so glad that you joined us, Ken Womack, for as long as you did. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys. It's really fun to be back. And, most of the reason that I can't make these Monday nights, as you guys know more than anyone else, is that's when I teach the Beatles or Springsteen.
Yep, exactly. So I couldn't believe that you were free tonight.
Yeah, well, it's the semester's over, Kit. It's
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
We got lucky.
Yeah.
Exactly. So so now it's time to let everybody know what we're up to. So Ken, you are always super busy with stuff, but let people know what you're up to, where they can reach you, all that fun stuff.
Which Ken?
Ken Womack, sorry.
And,
Sorry about that.
well, you can always check out my website, everythingfab4.com. I'm going to Liverpool a few times this summer.
Ooh.
Got all sorts of things planned. I'm excited to go to Liverpool Beatle Week and Catherine Cox's Liverpool Hope University Conference. Those will certainly be fun. Just trying to keep out of trouble, Kit.
That's right. Oh, and
You're gonna.
Oh, go ahead.
No, so you're gonna be in Chicago, right, in August for the fest.
Of course. You never know what's going to happen there with Kit and that whole gang. So you bet. I hope to see you guys there too.
I'm
Yeah.
supposed to be there. My first one
Yeah.
in Chicago.
Yeah, Joe's first one.
Hope it pans out.
Absolutely. And your new season of Everything Fab 4, your podcast just dropped, right?
That's right. Yeah, we have a new episode tomorrow with Joan Osborne. She was a lot of fun.
Nice.
Okay.
Talking about what if God was one of us.
Was one of us.
I remember that song well.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, Ken. Joe, what are you up to?
Well, please subscribe to my channel, Mean Mr. Mayo, on YouTube. Some of the things that I'm doing, I have a new series that I'm starting. I have a friend who's been around for a long time and collecting Beatles stuff for a long time. And he's doing this crazy thing where we're making videos where he has boxes and boxes from eBay and things he's ordered and has never opened since like before COVID, and doesn't even know what he's got. What he knows he ordered these things, but he doesn't know where they are, what order they're in. So he wants to open them up with all of you, share them with you. I put one video up of that, several videos old now, a few back, and we're going to be making another one supposedly this weekend. So also I've been getting back into vinyl. I've gone down the rabbit hole. I've been getting out of vinyl. Now I'm back into vinyl. I'm collecting again, so you can see me showing some vinyl stuff I need, stuff I probably don't need, and whatever. But I got the bug, and I did another record store reality video. That's one of the goings on of the crazy crew at my record store. They're getting better again and plentiful because I'm hanging out there more and there's more stuff to record. And finally, I was on Canadian Stud Muffins channel, if you know Canadian Stud Muffin, Larry Graves. We have a video there where he wanted myself and a couple of guests to pick or rank, I should say, our McCartney songs from all his 26 solo albums. The first track of each one, 20 or 26 songs. So rank them, from like least favorite to most favorite, the first song on each McCartney album, not counting live albums or things like that. So we did that video. And I guess that's it. Oh, no, Tom's going to say, the movie channel. I felt like you guys now. Now I can talk for half an hour instead of like 30 seconds. I also have a movie channel this week. I've changed the title again to Mr. Mayo's Movies. Kept it simple till I change it again. And right now, I've had no content in 4 weeks. But Tom Hunyadi and I a lot of times do a movie talk show. It's Wednesday nights, live, 9 p.m. Eastern.
Maybe we can talk about some a new 8 movie this Wednesday.
I haven't seen it yet, and I should see it for Wednesday. But now you're telling me that, or somebody said, is this public news about a Lennon thing? It's supposed to be a Lennon announcement on Wednesday. I'm like, oh.
Maybe. You never know.
Got to be the first one up with a video.
There you go. All right. Thank you, Joe. Tom, what are you up to?
Yeah, busy as always. We just dropped a show talking about what we talked about tonight. Let It Be, and it's done very well. Very happy with the response to that video. We're planning on doing a video about the Memory Almost Full secret gigs. Who Andy, as well as a couple people that we know, were also there. So we're going to have them on, and we're going to talk about their experience seeing that show. We're also going to very soon, probably at the end of this month, have Luca Perazzi back on talking about his latest book, Paul McCartney and Wings, Band on the Run, the story of a classic album. So be on the lookout for that. We did talk about the transcripts of the Paul McCartney interview from the All You Need Is Love book that just came out from Peter Brown and Stephen Gaines. So look at that. We started a new series about iconic songs that's going to feature Alan Kozin and Adrian Sinclair. We're going to talk about something really soon with Adrian Sinclair, but I don't want to say what it is because I don't want to give other people the idea as well. I want to keep it,
Keep that on,
you know,
on the down low. Got it.
Yeah, keep it on the down low, but no, it's something that's going to be celebrating its 50th anniversary really soon. But a lot of stuff coming up, and very very excited about the shows that we've got planned. And yeah, please subscribe. We're very near 2K on the YouTube channel, so very happy about that. We're less than 10 subscribers away. So if you haven't subscribed, please go over to Two Legs, a Paul McCartney podcast, and subscribe to the channel. And we really appreciate everybody that watches that show, everybody that watches this show, Joe Mayo's show, Ken Michael's show, the Toppermost of the Poppermost, and Ken Womack's show as well. So thank you, everybody that just watches or listens to our shows. We really appreciate it.
Well said, sir. Absolutely. Okay, Ken Michaels.
All right. First of all, the other Beatles podcast show that I'm a part of, Things We Said Today. This week, fingers crossed, toes crossed, we should be interviewing Michael Lindsey-Hogg. So that should be dropping, I hope, Thursday. So that's the big news about that show. Also on my YouTube channel, Ken Michaels Radio, I just did an interview with Jeff Slate, who's a friend of ours, rock journalist and also a musician and songwriter. We did a number 9 Dream show on John Lennon, and that's when I picked 3 categories about John's music, and for each of those categories, Jeff had to give me his top 3. So for this show, it was his favorite 3 Lennon vocals of all time, 3 favorite Lennon lyrics of all time, and 3 favorite solo Lennon album cuts. That's what makes a number 9 Dream show. And he talks about his new album, which is due out this Friday, called The Last Day of Summer, which has Earl Slick on there and Dave Stewart and a whole bunch of really good musicians. And that's on Ken Michaels Radio. I should also be interviewing Luca Perazzi as Tom will for the Band on the Run book. My syndicated radio show, Every Little Thing, the easiest way to hear it is by going to WFDU's website, WFDU.FM. They run the last 2 shows that aired on the radio station. They make it available as an archived show, each show running for 2 weeks. So go to WFDU.FM, type in the show Every Little Thing, and you can listen to the last 2 shows there. Also, my website, KenMichaelsRadio.com, has Beatles trivia contests every couple of weeks. You can win all kinds of great prizes. Just recently gave away Ken's book on Mal Evans. And so along with that,
gave it away. What? Gave it away?
Yes.
Oh.
What do you mean? Why are you questioning that?
You got to buy that stuff, right? You got to support physical media, right? We need physical media to survive. We need people buying it.
Well, the Mal Evans book is plastered on my Facebook page every couple of weeks.
Yeah,
So
Ken's been doing his part, and we appreciate it.
Yep. So, yeah, if you want to email me, my email address is everylittlething@att.net. And please visit and friend me on my Facebook page at Ken Michaels. And one more thing, since we've been talking about Let It Be, just want to remind everybody, one of my great thrills in doing my YouTube channel, I interviewed Kevin Harrington a couple of times.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah, you did.
Doesn't give many interviews. I'm sure, Ken, you interviewed him, right, in talking about Mal Evans.
Oh,
So,
for sure.
yeah, check that out. What's that?
I think he's wonderful. Yeah.
He's just a regular guy.
Look,
He tells it like it is, what it's like working for the Beatles and what his life was like after the Beatles. So he doesn't give many interviews, but you can check it out at Ken Michaels Radio.
look for his book, The Redhead on the Roof, from Apcor Books.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yep. Thank you, Tom.
All right. And thank you, Ken. Okay, and just quickly, you can reach us at Talk More Talk right here, of course, on this YouTube channel. And please subscribe. We're getting close to 2,000 here as well. So please let's get those numbers up. And so tell everybody you know, please subscribe. And if you haven't already, and please, we want to thank you as well, as Tom said earlier, for all of your support, for tuning in. If you're a regular viewer, if this is your first time, thank you so much for your support. We really appreciate it. You can also find us on Facebook, Talk More Talk, a Solo Beatles videocast. And if you click the like button, you will be notified of all future episodes. You can find us on Twitter, Talk More Talk 1, the number 1. We are on the web at talkmoretalk.com. And you can email us at talkmoresolotalk@gmail.com. We hear from you guys periodically. Thank you so much for feedback. And if you have ideas for topics, you might just see that in the future. As for me, I am been really busy teaching my class, my current class, and my second one, British Invasion, my second one meets this week. But I will be back in the future. I'll be announcing probably in the not too distant future my next class for the fall. But I will be on Ken's record club in the also near future. I probably will be announcing that soon, as well as book club. So I'm looking forward to that.
So what you're saying, kid, is you're going clubbing.
I'm going clubbing. Yes, I enjoy clubbing.
See you around the clubs, Kit.
See you around the clubs. That's right.
That works.
Nicely
That's
done.
perfect.
Nicely done. Nicely done, Tom. So
That would have been
also,
a good end for the
yeah,
show.
exactly. No kidding. And also new episodes of Talk More Talk. Well, yes, that too. But Toppermost to the Poppermost are up. The May episode, or the April episodes, and some of the May episodes are up. And the June episodes we're going to be recording very soon, so be on the lookout for those. So please subscribe to that as well. You can find us at toppermostofthepoppermost.net. So that is everything. We are all a bunch of busy people. But thank you again for joining us tonight for this very special episode. Ken Womack, thank you again for joining us. So for Tom, Joe, Ken, and Ken, boy, easy to remember names tonight, right? This is this is Kit saying that I hope we passed the audition.